Welcome everyone, and Merry Christmas to all of you during this Christmas season. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him, Christ the Lord. So, we're going to take a look at the second reading from Mass on Sunday. A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out of a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was to go. By faith, he received power to generate, even though he was past the normal age, and Sarah herself was sterile. For he thought that the one who made the promise was trustworthy. So it was, there came forth from one man, himself as good as dead, descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sands on the seashore. By faith, Abraham, when put to the test, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promise was ready to offer his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac descendants shall bear your name." He reasoned that God was able to raise even from the dead, and he received Isaac back as a symbol. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, these are great readings, and it's wonderful the way they all tie together. The first reading ties in with the other readings. The responsorial psalm does the same. The second reading, the gospel, they're all kind of knit together. So this is a section from the letter to the Hebrews. We don't know who the author is. You know, for generations and centuries we used to say it was St. Paul, but now we're pretty sure it was not St. Paul. And it just says to the Hebrews. Well, this letter was probably written to the Hebrews living in the city of Rome who believed that Jesus was the Messiah. It's probably written to the Jews who have become followers of Jesus Christ in Rome. And the writer is encouraging the people in Rome to have faith in Jesus Christ, to put their faith in God, to believe that Jesus is who He is. And how is he going to encourage them to do that? Well, he's going to go all the way back to the first book in the Old Testament and say, look at Abraham. That man was a man of faith. So be people of faith. Follow our father Abraham in believing. So that's kind of the overview for what's happening here. Okay, he's going to give three examples of the faith of Abraham. And he always prefaces it with this little phrase, by faith, Abraham. By faith, Abraham. So, okay, brothers and sisters, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out of a place. And he was to go to a place that he was going to receive as his inheritance, although he had no idea what he was going to. What's all that about? Well, Abraham lived in present-day Iran, maybe Iraq, but most likely Iran. And somehow God begins to reveal himself to Abram. And finally God says, you know, Abram, you got to pack up and move. I want you to go somewhere else. And Abram says, okay, God, where? And he says, just go. And he says, really, just go? Like, go where? And God says, just go. Trust me. I'll lead you. You just have to get up and move. Well, would you do that? You know? But sure enough, being a man of faith, Abraham gets up and he was a chieftain, and with all of his tribe, all the people, all the wives, all the cattle, all the camels, and off he goes. He starts on this journey. Okay. Next, by faith, he received power to generate. Now, this refers back to the first reading. Abraham has no children. His wife, Sarah, is sterile. God says he's going to remain faithful to the promises he made to Abram in the covenant that they entered into. And Abram says, what good is that if I don't have any children? So God takes him outside. Look at the stars. Look down at the sands on the seashore. You will have that many descendants one day. And so, by faith, Abram believes. Okay, he believes. Okay, here we go. This is kind of the ultimate act of faith. By faith, Abraham, when put to the test, offered up Isaac. So now, to test Abram and to see how much faith he has, God says to Abram, I want you to sacrifice your son Isaac. And, all these promises were supposed to come through Isaac, and now he's supposed to kill Isaac, sacrifice Isaac, but by faith he's willing to do it. And now we know that he doesn't. An angel comes and grabs his hand with the knife just as he's about to sacrifice Isaac. And you need to keep in mind, too, that this story about the sacrifice of Isaac is not just a story about faith. When that was written and when it was shared amongst the Jewish people, the nations that encircled the Jewish people, they practiced child sacrifice. And so this story about the near sacrifice of Isaac is really a condemnation of the abominable practice of child sacrifice. So, okay, so this is a great story about Abram's family that continues and the faith of Abraham. We need to be people of great faith too. Abraham, every time he was asked to do something, he didn't have all the details, but he just kind of leaned into it. And that's a little bit what faith is. It's just leaning into a hunch. So I would encourage you to have faith and to do things that strengthen your faith. Faith is a little bit like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So find ways that you can lean into the promptings that God gives you and follow through on them. Sometimes those promptings are leaning into something to do. I would encourage you, even if it's not clear, just to take the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. Sometimes we're prompted by the Holy Spirit to start not doing things that we're doing. And sometimes that is an act of faith. It's like, oh my gosh, could I ever not do that? People involved with recovery, I think, they're men and women of great faith. Because one day they wake up and they just start to ask this question, what if? What if I don't drink today? What if I don't drug today? Okay? If they're addicted to stuff on the internet, what if I don't go to those sites? And they start to lean into those promptings. Doesn't make sense, but they're just little promptings. And they start to develop their faith. And then what they thought could happen really does start to happen. So let's be people of faith. Let's imitate Abraham, our father in the faith, and strengthen our faith in whatever ways God is prompting us to do that. Thanks, everyone. God bless.